All right, a very good morning to you from wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to your Sunday premier political show, Inside Politics, where we review the week's top governance developments and look into the crystal ball in terms of anticipating what those developments will mean in the political landscape going forward. Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jesse Rogers, and what a week it has been. So much to talk about, so little time, because just this week we saw President William Ruto hard pressed to shed light on state-sanctioned abductions, corruption in the government, and his relationship with Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. And during that interview with mainstream media houses, the president promised dialogue and hinted at looming changes in government in the wake of the new reality we're currently facing right here in Kenya. Now, fast forward, President William Ruto has definitely announced major concessions touching on a raft of issues, including how the government is run. All this playing out at a time when we can draw parallels between the July 7th, 1990 protest referred to as Saba Saba Day and the current agitation led by the Gen Z youth in the country. So we'll definitely canvass some of the highlights of the week as we try and anticipate what exactly they mean going forward. Before I get to introduce my guests, we just have a story that will paint a picture of some of the concessions that have been made by President William Ruto lately, in terms of right before he had that X-Space meeting with Kenyans, he announced a raft of concessions touching on cutting or scrapping off of the budget for the spouse of the deputy president, the first lady as well, and the spouse of the prime cabinet secretary. Those are among some of the concessions that were made. Let's just listen in to major concessions that were made before we begin the discussions right here.
After reports reached the country of a presidential address, Kenyans were tuned in, hoping to hear the much anticipated news of a possible cabinet dissolution or reshuffle. However, this did not happen despite immense pressure from Kenyans. President William Ruto, however, hinted of changes coming soon.
These measures will be followed by changes in government that I will be making shortly.
The president instead announced austerity measures that his government had taken to align itself with budget cuts occasioned by dropping of Finance Bill 2024. Woe unto you if you are a state officer and you are planning to make contributions in a Harambee.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or harambees going forward.
President Ruto also said the decision to fill the position of Chief Administrative Secretary, CAS, effectively stands suspended, further slashing the number of his advisors by half.
The decision to fill the position of Chief Administrative Secretaries is hereby suspended. The number of advisors in government shall be reduced by 50% within the public service with immediate effect.
47 government parastatals and agencies with similar mandates to be done away with.
Staff currently employed by the affected corporations will be transferred to ministries and other state agencies within government.
President Ruto listed several critical government initiatives that will receive continued funding.
The austerity measures announced by President William Ruto comes at the backdrop of pressure from the public to trim down the government, even as the president promises to make more changes. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News at State House, Nairobi.
Okay, so President William Ruto earlier on did hint at looming changes in the government in the wake of the new reality. And there we have the raft of austerity measures that have been mentioned by President William Ruto. 47 state corporations dissolved and enjoined in relevant ministries. Their roles are set to be executed by the ministries' departments. Appointments of CASs has been suspended. The budgets to the offices of the First Lady, the DP's spouse, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary's spouse have been removed from the 2024 budget. All non-essential travel by state officers suspended. No public or state officer is said to be involved in Harambes going forward until the Attorney General crafts guidelines on when and how the state officers will make donations. Equally, advisors have been slashed by half, and the president equally named a task force to audit public debt that we have in the country. So what next in terms of what the president has done? Will he walk the talk in terms of some of the promises he's given in terms of the changes made going forward? So much to talk about, so little time. Welcome to Inside Politics once again. I'm Jesse Rogers. Allow me to introduce my panelists joining me today, an esteemed panel. I'll first start with the gentleman on my right, Philip Kisia, who's a governance and leadership expert. Karibu sana to the round table. And it's a pleasure to have you with us. We're hoping to tap into your institutional memory around the Sabasaba protests and whether we can draw parallels, between what we're seeing in the country right now and what we saw back in July 7th, 1990. Karibu sana.
Thank you, Jesse.
Asante sana. Equally joined by Anthony Ngeru, who is the head of communications research at UDA. Karibu sana to the round table.
Asante sana.
And you're featuring at a time when the president hinted at perhaps a lack of proper communication breakdown from his team. So we'll definitely want to know what exactly you're doing to improve the communication that is going towards the executive and the president. But Karibu sana, he's from the UDA party. We're equally joined by Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, not a new name and face to the round table. Karibu sana, Wakili. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Asante sana.
Well, we'll be looking forward to what you have to say in terms of LSK and that task force that is supposed to audit the debt we have in the country. It seems they're pulling out, and they seem to mention that task force is unconstitutional according to LSK.
They are doing the right thing.
They are, huh? Well, we'll definitely get to it in just a few. We're waiting for Herman Manyora, who is a political analyst. He'll join us when he can, but the show must go on. And let's begin with some of this announcements that were made by President William Ruto in the course of this week, focusing on the austerity measures that have been made so far. Because some of these issues are what Gen Z, the youth, wanted highlighted by the government. And I beg to start with a political question, Kisia. As you reflect on what has been made in terms of concessions so far, is this a move in the right trajectory for the country, or do you view it as a change of tune, simply to push political expediency, to calm the waters? How do you view them?
Jesse and my fellow panelists, good morning and thank you to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I think before we even dive into the discussion, it would be appropriate and proper if we observed a minute of silence. Because it shows that we've lost. We've counted over 39, I think thereabout. And the government, of course, has less. But
Okay.
even one death counts. One death, especially when it's for a young person, I think it is something that should trouble
All
any
right.
parent. 1 minute. Thank you, Jesse, and may the souls of the departed who have died through heinous
Okay.
acts of
Philip,
this government rest in peace. Let me now
I
dive into the...
apologies. I have to
the-
cut you short due to our own technical issues, but we'll definitely come back to you. Apologies for that. As we fix the mic on that side. Nyaribo, how do you view these concessions? A step in the right direction? Because this is some of the demands the Gen Zs had on the table.
Yeah,
The president has listened.
Thank you, Jesse. In fact, all the demands the Gen Z want have actually been met, except the president resigning. Because if you look at whatever they were demanding, teachers have been, the junior JSS teachers, they've been promised to be hired. Let's not assume that the mere statement of the head of state said is an act of hiring itself.
Okay.
So, and then of course all those other demands in terms of cutting, expenditures, bringing down the extra ministries and all that. I think the president has done quite a bit in terms of ensuring that he responds to the young people's demands and indeed Kenyans' demands. As we go into this, debate, we will be, analyzing whether this is a possibility or not, whether indeed the austerity measures will be implemented or not. But in terms of has the president responded to what the young people wanted, the answer to me, honestly, is yes. And the only thing he has not done, he has not resigned. But in terms of all these other demands the young generation wanted, he has at least come near to meeting, say, 90 or so percent. We shall delve into, is it possible really when you say that already I think I am doing away with 47 parastatals or something like that.
Yeah.
There is a whole process for annihilating an existing corporation. A corporation that was brought by an act of parliament will not be, just wished away by a statement on the microphone. So those are the issues we can analyze. But in terms of, has the president responded? I think the answer is yes. And that now takes us to where Phil took us into in terms of observing silence. Should we actually blame these young people who protested and even stormed parliament? Should we blame them? Because their demands have been met. Why are we even having them charged in the courts? Because what they asked for, the president has actually acquiesced to more than 90% in my own statistics.
Yeah.
So what should we hear the likes of Sudi saying that people wanted to overthrow the government? I mean, which overthrowing? These were young people protesting and trying to have their voices heard. And the voices have been heard. So I think it's quite pretentious for anybody to imagine that we should take these children to court, we should jail them, when what they demanded for has successfully been responded to by the head of state himself. And he has also confirmed that I might not have gotten good advice. So I think that's what I mean when I say he has said 47 parastatals, ministers shall be cut into half, we shall austerity measures. If you've gone through all that, how can you then say that there were people who were conducting an act of treason? How can you say that we will continue to jail them? How can you say there are some politicians who are sponsoring? I think we should be honest, like, head of state has said this is a Christian government. We should be frank and honest and say, we were wrong, but now we have seen light. We shall forgive all these children who may have broken, properties and destroyed people's properties. We forgive them because they could not have done that if you were on the right track. That's my point.
So it was, we could have avoided that whole scenario. You don't seem to believe that criminal elements infiltrated this protest.
No. Since you mentioned that, Jesse, before
Briefly,
my colleagues, I am not in charge of how criminals operate in town. It's none of my business. That is the business of the National Police Service and other security agencies. You saw on Valley Road a large number of motorbikes with the people, border trying to steal from people. We saw that clip. I hope you all saw that. And we are told that these people came from a certain quarter, and I am told they were being given money. I am not supposed to be the one, controlling those people. It is the national security, organs who should make sure that Kenyans' property is not destroyed, and to ensure that Kenyans are going on their businesses in the usual way. So whether there were criminals, that's a decoy. I think the government is trying to use that to hoodwink people that Kenyans are criminals. Kenyans are not. Criminals are a few bad oranges that the National Police Service should deal with. Why are you following children who are protesting instead of going to protect critical infrastructure and people's properties, the supermarkets? Why are you following me when I'm just carrying a placard and you're seriously tear-gassing me? That is where the mistake is, Jesse. Those children were protesting. There was sorry if I use the word children in a negative sense. No, I don't mean that. But those young people were protesting in the right way. Police should be on the properties of citizens to ensure that any quote-unquote criminal element, as they say, does not go that direction. Of course, we all know that when any activity happens, even here as we speak today, there are people watching with different intentions. So you cannot really try to hide behind there were criminal elements. That's the business of the state.
Anthony, I have to bring you into the discussion because some Kenyans do not appreciate the fact that the president might make promises on political podiums and later on does not live up to the expectations of the masses. And perhaps that's where they're taking his declarations with a hint of suspicion in terms of the austerity measures that have been made so far. Because fact is, it's not the first time that a head of state, not just William Ruto, has mentioned about be it retirement age being capped at 60. This has been said time and time again, but hasn't been followed. So what will ensure that President William Ruto walks the talk when it comes to the state corporations that are supposed to be dissolved in terms of scrapping off money to, some of these offices that are not constitutional? Talk to us.
Thank you so much, Jesse, and thank you for allowing me to be here today. And first of all, let me start by empathizing and sending my sympathies to the families of the bereaved, and also for all those who were injured during the protests. We have been comparing it to the 1990 Saba, of which this time round it is not more so political, but it is led by ideological differences among our youths. So just like the president said, we really welcome such kinds of conversations, and the president has proven over time that he is a listening president. This is a listening government. And some of the measures that have been put in place, the president has been very clear in the past that we need to cut our coat according to our cloth. We need to live within our means. So ideally, that is what has directed some of the austerity measures. We know there are some which had even been put before, including reducing recurrent expenditure by 50%, cutting off domestic and international travel by half, cutting off the office tea and all that kind of stuff. And it was quite unfortunate what happened after the initial protests that were very, very organic. And I have to commend the police in the first place, because they protected our protesters in a very big way. However, there have been some incidences which have been unacceptable, and we have independent authorities that are looking into that, including IPOA. They shall give a conclusive report in regards to if there are some police officers who overstepped their mandate. During the protest, we also saw some of the protesters, trying to provoke even the police. And we have even seen some of those clips online. But the police executed a lot of restraint when they were faced with such. But like I have said, of course, there are one or two incidences that happened. Of course, just like my brother Philip has said, every life is precious. And whether it's 1 or 39, every life is precious. Okay. And you see, if you look at our history as a country, I think the Kenya Kwanza government is one of those governments where if you just say Kenya Kwanza, you are automatically directed to some of the manifesto promises that we gave. And if you try to identify the current government, the first thing that pops in your mind is kazi ni kazi, and some of the promises that we made. At the party, we have a secretariat that is intentionally tracking the implementation of the 172 promises that the president made. And we are very intentional in ensuring that all these 172 promises are implemented. That is away from some of the public declarations that are made by the president. Okay. And there's this notion that has been created that the president is not truthful. I want to dispel that rumor, because as we look at where we are currently compared to where we were 2 years ago, there has been tremendous growth. Our economy has grown in a very big way. At some point, our inflation was at 9.8%. Right now, we are at 4.6%, which means the prices of basic commodities within the inflation basket have gone down. We are talking about electricity. We are talking about unga. through the subsidized fertilizer. We are talking about fuel prices which have gone down by roughly 35 shillings per liter. So contrary to what is out there in the public domain, the government is in the right trajectory. But you know, in every policies that you implement, you cannot be 100% you know, in everything that you do, and that's why the president decided to open that forum to listen to everyone from all junctures, so that we can move forward as a nation.
So the president is walking the talk, yes, from your point of view.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, allow me to appreciate the presence of Herman Manyora, who's just joined us. Asante sana for your time and your presence right here on the round table. And as you follow up on what Anthony has just mentioned, the president is a listening president and whatnot. I beg to ask a question centered on the fight against corruption, because we've had the president talk about that before, time and time again, from Mambo ni Matatu to no sacred cows. But now Kenyans were asking that people in your cabinet that have been linked to corruption, kindly fire them. That did not happen. And I remember the Friday Standard had actually hinted at, you know, the Last Supper. So we were hinting and were looking forward to a cabinet reshuffle. Talk to us about the fight against corruption and this talk about sacred cows. Because the president, when he was put to task, he mentioned that he's a stickler for law. He doesn't want to follow the route that the previous president did, fire, and then the courts find out that these public officers were not to be blamed for anything.
Thank you, Jesse, for having me. And because this is my first public appearance since these things started, I must send my condolences, like everybody else, to those who lost loved ones, to the bereaved. They should take comfort and consolation in the knowledge that we will all die. It's just a transition when you die. But more importantly, given the times, those who have lost loved ones should know that the tree of freedom is watered, not always by water, oftentimes by blood. So that in a young man who went to the streets in defense of country, because you are in defense of your country if you want to take your country to the next level, to ensure the next generation after you will find a better country. You are actually fighting for your country. Your death cannot be in vain. So we condole them, those who have lost loved ones, and wish speedy recovery to those still nursing injuries.
All right.
Corruption is a difficult thing to deal with. It's not a Kenyan problem. It's a global problem. It takes various forms. I always say that what we have in this country, we are lucky. We don't have corruption in this country at all. And that's why we don't even need EACC. We don't have corruption at all. We are very lucky. We haven't reached there. Because corruption is sophisticated. What we have is raw theft. Raw theft. You can't call that corruption. You don't need an anti-corruption. All these people who steal our money here, you just need a police constable to arrest them and a recent law graduate to prosecute them, and they go to jail. So we are lucky we don't have corruption. We have just theft. That's why all it will take is an individual like Philip Kisia to go to State House. I keep saying this, and people sometimes, there are those who think I'm joking. I tell them, if I'm elected president and I'm sworn in on that Tuesday, whatever date is, I'll call you media for breakfast on the following day, on Wednesday. And from that day, Jesse, nobody will touch Kenyan money, not 1 shilling, because they will know. It starts just at the top. So I am not convinced there is anybody in this country, from Jomo Kenyatta, Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Karen, who really are committed to the fight against corruption.
Okay.
They may say they may say and do they play their role, they improve hapa na pale kidogo, but the fight against corruption is not about talking, it's about action. Yeah.
Let me ask you this then. Was a cabinet reshuffle a bare minimum to expect from President William Ruto, from where you sit?
No. Even yesterday, I released a video on my YouTube.
Yeah.
An open letter to the president, the communication person. Have you watched it?
Oh, definitely.
You have watched it and listened to
I'm a
it.
keen follower.
Thank you, sir. I am telling the president, we are living in bad times and hard times. These are very difficult times.
Okay.
This country, we can make it or break it at this juncture. And he needs to do one or two things. One of those is to appreciate the magnitude of the problem. There is a problem. To deny there is a problem is to do yourself great disservice as a president, as a leader, and we as people. The second thing is to stop being clever and to stop playing games. This is not time to be clever. To be clever by doing all these things I found you talking when I entered here. Oh, River Road, you send boys there with boys. No, those are games, and there is no time for that.
Okay.
And therefore I told him, you must send a signal to the people of Kenya so that they can know you are serious and you appreciate the magnitude of the problem and you deliver hope by doing certain things. And you are not the first one to do. People do it.
Okay.
When a government is in this kind of situation, you dissolve government. You reorganize government. I'm telling you it works wonders because we are all human beings. And just you would know, you are just a psychological bundle. Human beings, each of us is just a psychological bundle. Okay. That's why it's very easy to take people in the right direction. If you dissolve cabinet, that alone, and put a few serious names in the list of people you nominate, you'll be shocked at how that will solve this problem. And send a few of these people we know home. And people want people like David indeed to go home. They may not even be wrong, but that's how politics wants.
Okay.
So it's not about reshuffle. It's about dissolving cabinet and appointing new faces.
Interesting. Kesia, we have to take a break, but I saw a tweet you put out there in terms of giving President William Ruto a C+ in terms of the austerity measures he has introduced and the concessions, the raft of concessions he's made so far. As we come from the break, I'll be putting you to task to explain to us whether this particular move by the president is a step in the right direction or what exactly needs to be done, perhaps as Manyora put it, that we need to dissolve cabinet, start afresh. So we take that break. We'll be back in a few. You're watching Inside.